in what is very quickly being dubbed the Ditchley Park betrayal, or the Ditchley Ditch meeting, certainly by a couple of the Brexiteers, there is a mass worry in their movement that they have been finally betrayed. But of course, as we've said before, the Brexiteers love to be the betrayed, but more often than not are the betrayees, as we have covered for many, many years. So imagine my shock for a moment that the Telegraph, aka the Tory graph, has a piece in here that just yesterday, I believe it was, to basically deliver the fact that Brexit is finally dead and the Tory party along with it. They say, I knew there was going to be, and I still expect there to be some more serious pushback against this, but I think this adds up to more evidence to what I'm slowly going to be calling the Gove conspiracy. If you're a member of the Pony Club, we'll be doing a special video about that this afternoon for you all as this week's membership video before we, shall we say, bring it to the masses. So if you would like to see a lot, not only just that, but many of the now videos that I've made, not only just for the Pony Club members, but also our Patreon members as well. Like I say, there are links down below to, again, join the Patreon, to join the Pony Club. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there is the One Off Donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And like I say, as always, thank you also very much to the people who also hit the like and share button as well. Like I say, that helps out the channel massively as well. And of course, do remember to ring the bell as well so you get notifications. And of course, if you're new as well, hit the subscribe button. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the craziness that is UK politics. So let's go diving into this, because this is fascinating. I think this is long going to have repercussions, and it's going to be interesting to see now how the Brexit actually answer, whether they have a firm answer or not. It could go very interesting, to say the least, but hey, we'll see. So, like I say, this comes from the Telegraph. The title of Brexit is finally dead, and the Tory party will soon suffer the same fate. Ooh. The cliche goes that, quote, time is running out to make something of Brexit. But on Thursday, February the 9th, the last speck of sand in the hourglass finally fell. It really is all over. And how fitting that Brexit was finally condemned to death in the gilded splendour of Ditchley Park, a discreet yet decadent retreat for the country's most powerful since the reign of Elizabeth I. So already the language has been put there, that it's discreet yet decadent, giving the, of course, language of the elites have finally come to deliver the death of Brexit, because obviously the 2016 Brexit campaign was sold as it is this, it's us versus the elites. And yet, in reality, there were far more elite, rich and powerful people pushing for Brexit than there were even pushing for Remain. So there you go. So, of course, the status quo order is trying to be subtle, even polite, about this magnificent triumph over Leaver populism. Last week's gathering, which saw the executive of major banks commune with senior political figures on both sides of the Brexit debate, including Michael Gove and, of course, David Lammy, wasn't particularly secret. Well, it was until we found out about it. We found out about it on, I believe, Saturday evening, about when all the news sort of first broke. So it was actually quite secret. No one knew this meeting was even happening at all until, well, someone leaked it. So despite some attempts to hype it up as so, it also took place under a fairly bland working title of How We Can Make Brexit Work Better with Our Neighbours in Europe. But let's not be naive. Again, trying to contain the narrative, continue the narrative that we are being betrayed Brexit is being betrayed. Our precious Brexit is being betrayed. Oh no. Oh no. So the exchange dwelled heavily on the fact that Brexit is not delivering, and there was broad support for a closer relationship with the EU. In other words, both sides agreed that the dream of meaningful divergence had fallen into a deep coma. Let's see what that actually means by that, by meaningful divergence. Basically, anyone who ever says that is trying to obfuscate what they really want. What they want is mass deregulation. They want this low tax, low regulation Singapore and the Thames model that they proclaim, oh no, we don't want that. But meanwhile, they're making, the pyramid signs of, yes, we want that, that thing perfectly. That's what we would love. But no, we don't want that. But actually, yes, we do. And like I say, just yesterday, we did the video about the Ohio train disaster. That Ohio train disaster is steeped that if regulations had been had not only been followed but had been in place, that disaster in Ohio potentially would not have even happened. And as I said in that video, the second we start to, or at least the Tories start to push for this mass deregulatory agenda, the more stuff we see like that will happen. And it would only be literally a matter of ticking time bombs before we see numerous disasters like that happen because of this deregulatory, quote, meaningful divergence that we have seen happen in the UK. And like I say, most people do not want that. But back to it. So, a proverbial contract to switch off the project's life support machine was subsequently signed. Oof. such language about that. And again, it's a bit of an interesting statement that you're saying that Brexit was already on life support. If it's like that, then maybe your project wasn't as good as you initially said it would be, or at least maybe advertised. Not that Brexit demise was all part of some elaborate plot. The project has been mortally wounded for some time, and there simply wasn't the political will to save it. No, the truth is, Brexit was never mortally wounded. Brexit was always going to be pretty much DOA. That's the truth. It was always DOA. There was never any plan to, now you've done Brexit, now what? And going all the way back to 2016, we were constantly asking, okay, if you're going to do Brexit, that means this is going to happen. How do you intend to solve this problem? To which many times the Brexiteers would just come back and say, that's just Project Fear. That's not going to happen. You're just scaremongering people. But no, we've seen these things happen. We've seen the decrease in trade. We've seen the troubles potentially being reignited in Northern Ireland, something which Kate Hoey said that Northern Ireland not going to be a problem. We were promised that food prices would get incredibly cheaper. That has not happened. They've only increased in price because guess what? Most of our food comes from, you say it, the EU. Shock horror. And of course, there are multiple examples of you can see where Brexit has failed or the promises have not been delivered upon. Who has been in charge of Brexit? The Brexiteers. So they've got no one else to blame but themselves for this. So let's continue. So we could dwell at length on who exactly killed Brexit. You don't even have to dwell that long. It was the Brexiteers who killed their very own project. But in truth, as one Agatha Christie's Orient Express, everybody wielded the knife. It was Theresa May. Yep, just blame everyone but yourselves, guys. Okay. Theresa May, who squandered her parliamentary majority and thus gravely weakened Britain's negotiating position against Brussels. It was the political classes who could never see the project as more than a damage limitation exercise. And it was the Brexiteers, who failed to muster a compelling modern vision, preferring to glory in the buccaneering fantasies of free trade rather than focus on regulatory divergence to jumpstart science and tech. Well, bravo! You did something I didn't think I thought you were going to do. So, slow golf clap for you. Oh, dear me. But yeah, you are right. It is the Brexiteers. It's not even Theresa May or the political classes. This is all on the Brexiteers. It was their project. They were always going to be the ones to decide whether it succeeded or failed. And they never, ever had a vision or policies beyond the idea of Brexit is done. Now what? That's it. Now what? What do you want? What do you want to do next? You would never go into business at all with someone like this. A business like this would just never exist. Congratulations, we've opened up the shop. Now what? How do you get in customers? Are you going to be an online business, attracting people online with a mix of, people, walking off the street with foot traffic and people shopping online? What products are you going to sell? How that thousands of questions that you should have answers to, but they never did. So, regardless, the fact remains that Brexit is dead. The only thing left to do is political equivalent of disposing of the body. Oh, very true. Yeah, very true. I'll agree with that. Yeah, very true. This oh dear. This may start with the future of steps that nobody can contest. That reviving the Erasmus exchange program and cooperating with Brussels in new areas like energy. Meanwhile, Parliament will likely drop a work in process, such as the bill to make thousands of Brussels laws off the statute books by 2023. Yeah, exactly. They will, and they should drop that because that bill is absolutely bonkers. It is crazy the amount of damage that bill alone will do. And we've talked about that at length. So go and watch my other videos if you want to just see just how bad that bill really, really is. So then, under pressure from big businesses, the government might well seek to relieve labour market shortages by, for example, expanding the agricultural workers scheme, which would be good. It would benefit farmers. It may even introduce primary legislation to automatically update UK standards in line with EU changes. Yeah, that would be good. That would be very good because if we did that, then basically that would mean that UK businesses could trade and match EU standards, which are recognized around the world. Having a separate UK standards makes no business sense or even economic sense at all. We are not a big enough market to be able to dictate to the world what standards should be. The EU is. That's why it is described very often by people as a regulatory superpower, even by people who do not like the EU. And even then, if the EU does change standards, we are trapped in its regulatory orbit. We are far too close just to be able to ignore those standards. So businesses would absolutely put pressure on the UK to change standards in line with the EU. That is got set in stone. And again, going back to the EU reform bill, EU law and retained EU law bill that you said, that is part of what all the businesses are saying. Why are you doing this? We do not want this amount of uncertainty you are about to unleash upon us. But so put bluntly, even before there is another referendum, we will most probably reach a point which feels a lot like being back in the single market. Again, that's always the direction we're going in. And ultimately, as support for Brexit plummets, we can expect a fresh vote within 5 to 7 years. But there's a hitch. There is no way the ruling classes can get away with terminating Brexit without seismic consequences. No, they absolutely will. We'll be able to do it without any potential seismic consequences. Will there be some pushback? Yes, of course, absolutely there will. But it will be for those people who pushed for Brexit and pushed for leave to say why we should continue on this absolutely anemic path that they themselves set us on, and have to explain why all these promises they made in 2016 have not come true. So they will be seen and certainly touted for the liars that they are. And trust me, I think in a future referendum versus sort of, rejoin, or should we say out, so we say, or should we say remain out, as it would probably be back then at that point. Um, they will be made out to be absolute liars, and I think you'll have very, very few politicians wanting to actually front a remain out campaign. It would be very interesting to see who would front such a campaign, but on with it. So, one thing, it is highly unlikely that the Tories would be able to survive. In order for the country to heal, the Conservative Party would have to be permanently destroyed through the ballot box. That's an incredible admission there, but okay, fair enough. And to be honest, it does look like that may be going the way. Fair or not, this is mere the way of history and the logic of populism. And again, it's the fault of the Conservative Party and probably for the writer himself, themselves, who wrote this and backed Brexit with a sheer zealotry um, that they themselves, fell into this. And we have seen what happens to populist projects. Sooner or later, you cannot keep blaming the same thing, because when you're finally in power and you're the one holding the reins of power, you haven't got anyone to blame. You can't blame the opposite. You can't blame the other people because you're in power now, not them. You can't blame the EU because, well, we're out of the EU now. It's all on you guys who made these crazy populist promises. And very quickly, populism loses its appeal very, very quickly. So, in a cleansing, cathartic act, the masses must find a way to acknowledge the revolution's betrayals and perversions while keeping the purity of the people's will intact. What? First of all, there was no betrayal. There was no perversion of Brexit. This was Brexit. The people responsible for Brexit's death are the people who pushed for Brexit, because they never had any plans beyond, well, we've got Brexit done. Okay, now what? What do you do next? This is what we've been saying very clearly since 2016. The second explosive effect of Brexit's death is that it has the pull of the ruling class back on coalition on course with the masses. People voted to leave for two reasons. Again, presuming what people voted for. Again, you can poll leavers massively and you will get wildly different ideas of why people voted leave. So the first was to exercise control over who comes into this country. We always exercised control over who comes into this country. The idea that we just had this wildly open border and we didn't know who was coming and going, completely false. The second was out of frustration that the economic status quo is failing, to the point where millions were waiting to take a massive gamble on the I don't even know how you would say that, this Schumpeterian disruption. And again, whose fault was that? That was the Conservatives. It was they who set up this, economy. And then during, Liz Truss's tenure as PM, tried to even double down on this nonsense. And your whole levelling up, not once did your party even take it seriously. You know which organization did take it seriously? The EU. So therein lies the nub of the problem. With returning to business as usual, such a bid would run roughshod over the popular appetite for greater sovereignty and radical change. Well, first of all, not many people want your type of radical change. I'm sorry, but I think Liz Truss pretty much proved that. And it wasn't even, and it wouldn't even solve the country's economic problems. No, that's true. Rejoining the EU, being in sort of the EU and the single market would not solve the country's economic problems. Would it alleviate a lot of the country's economic problems? Yes, but it would not solve them. And bear in mind, it is up to the government, the UK government, to solve those problems. And the problem is, you've had a Conservative government for years who has not solved those problems and doubled down on the exact same things that led to people feeling, that the economy just was not working for them. Hence why the levelling up proposition sold by Boris Johnson was so attractive to many people in the north. So, Remainers may think that reversing Brexit will stir the economy out of the doldrums. It won't. Even before we left the EU, signs of the economic crisis were all around, from stagnant wages and corporate addiction to cheap labour and the worst productivity slump since the 19th century. Well, now we're out of the EU. The party that backed Brexit isn't putting forward solutions to these problems. Their idea is, oh, just deregulate, or sorry, no, diverge, and everything will be fine. But people do not want that. You should have solutions to these problems, but you do not. Brexit was never a solution to these problems. But reality, so often missed, is that our current economic woes are not rooted in issues of trade or business uncertainty, but rather a profound global slowdown in technological innovation. Here come the excuses. So apparently there has been a global slowdown in technological innovation. Nothing to do with the UK, as she's just said. Maybe sort of the roots of those problems maybe should be addressed first before you start going, oh no, it's just a global slowdown of technological innovation. You see why these people are just absolutely ideologically driven. Someone has just protested that the only reason Brexit is failing, the only reason why we're seeing this global slowdown, there's just this stagnation of technological innovation. That's it. If only we were to deregulate, then magically the technology would spring forth. So, in response to this charge, the Whitehall orthodoxy, again, because they've got to find someone to blame, so it's the Whitehall orthodoxy, even though, again, I can guarantee this person has never worked in Whitehall, doesn't know what that term even means, or what it should actually stand for, or even point to any examples of Whitehall orthodoxy. Again, this is an ideologue who wrote this, so of course you're going to be seeing as we've seen, lots of ideological words put into this. So the Whitehall orthodoxy can only babble about a, quote, productivity puzzle and, quote, poor British managerial practices, as it clings to a defunct neoclassical economic approach that puts price competition and rather than innovation competition at its heart. This is how deep the Brexit ditch has become. Not only do our elites not have no compelling plan for fixing things, they don't even have the intellectual understanding of the core issues. Funny that, because you've actually mentioned some of the core economic issues that the country faces, but you haven't put forward the answers to this either. Remember, Brexiteers put us in this place to begin with. It should be on them to provide solutions, because we were told we do Brexit and magically everything becomes better. It's up to the Brexiteers to come up with these solutions. They were the ones who told us Brexit would be wonderful, Brexit would be amazing. But no, we've been constantly told that, oh no, we're not Brexiting hard enough. We need to Brexit more. We need to really unleash the benefits of Brexit. So the question is now, to those who believe in growth. I wonder who she supported. Definitely a Liz Truss champion there. So the question is now, those who supported growth what they should do. Brexiteers might be tempted to wallow in conspiratorial rage at the deep state, who were, quote, never going to let us leave. But there is no time to mourn. The predicament of this country is too grave. The Trussites have declared to focus on pressuring Sunak on tax cuts, but more urgency is the realistic growth plan that could be an effective could be effective, even in spite of high taxes and the irksome EU regulation. This, would be difficult, yet not impossible. After all, although serious taxes were levied during the Industrial Revolution, this actually incentivized entrepreneurs to cut costs by innovating with new steam-powered machinery. So, why then, if you're saying that we could do this with the irksome EU regulations, why could we not do all this stuff when we're in the EU? Just a question, valid question that they never seem to be able to answer. So, a good start would be a growth coalition across all surviving major parties that can lobby to overhaul net zero and the planning system to ensure that a DARPA-style innovation agency in the pipeline gets the cash and autonomy it needs to survive. If this doesn't happen, one dreads to think what comes next. We will no doubt sink deeper into decline, and we may also face a second populist wave far more extreme than the first. And of course, we know who they're going to come after. They're going to come after the Brexiteers. They're going to come after the economic elite establishment, which, by the way, is the entire Brexiteer class at this point. Let's not kid ourselves. But hey, as we've said many, many times before, the people at fault here are the Brexiteers. It should be them. And we've been saying, okay, guys, now you've done Brexit, so how are you going to solve this problem? And they've refused time and time again to admit the basic reality of the global economy, what the UK economy actually is, what it is based on, just to throw it all away in favor of outlandish fantasies. And to be honest, I'm good that at one point she actually acknowledged that, of course, Brexiteers were to blame. But of course, I'm probably sure, given that the writer herself who wrote this is probably Brexiteer herself, she's probably trying to do a not true Scotsman argument, saying that, those are the Brexiteers to blame, not these types of Brexiteers. And this is why we've seen a couple of splits very recently in the whole Brexit camp. Because they cannot decide among themselves, now they've done Brexit, what do we do? They can't decide. I mean, the public, at a general election, if Truss was to generally be sort of the person standing in a general election, touting her crazy libertarian nonsense, would have lost in a heartbeat. Those libertarian ideals that they want to sort of promote, this idea of growth, it's not, libertarianism is not a popular ideology in the UK at all. But unfortunately, these people have been allowed into the party. They've been treated, oh, don't worry, that's just crazy old Jacob, or, crazy old whatever, and allowed to, go off into a corner, not realizing just how big the rot in that section of the party really was. These people are completely no talenters. And yet, Jacob Rees-Mogg only said a couple of days ago on his Mogcast, gee, us beating, Corbyn really stopped us from, that talent of those talentless no-hopers that would have been in his cabinet. Geez, you've only got to look at the people the Conservatives have been putting forward over the past couple of years. And bear in mind, those people who have actually had the talent have had the wise enough stance to either A, take a step back from the Conservative parliamentary party for a time being, disappear into the, shall we say, the long grass of the backbenchers, or in one case of Michael Gove, not even touch Brexit with a barge pole. Which, as I have said, very clearly leads into the whole Michael Gove conspiracy, that he is the only Brexiteer left who fronted a Leave campaign that has not had a proper bite at the Brexit apple. So who knows what this whole conference will mean, what this will be, but I will tell you now, the fact that you've got the Telegraph or the Torygraph, whichever you want to call it, saying that Brexit is now finally dead, just goes to show you which way the Conservative Party may be leaning on the Brexit path. But we'll have to see which way they go. There might be a pushback. There might not be. This might just be an attempt to see how many people in the Conservative Party are really serious about Brexit now that they know the damage that it has done. So, interesting times certainly are ahead in the Conservative Party, that's for sure. But as always, guys and gals, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a bit of a long one, but, of course, it's been good, so I hope you've enjoyed it. But, of course, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. Please do remember to ring the bell as well. And, of course, we'll see you all next time.